Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar. Today, we're going to have a very powerful webinar. It's not going to be a long webinar, but it's going to be very packed. We're going to cover some very important information about collections on credit reports. Now, this is a webinar that I've been wanting to do for a while now because there is a lot of bad information and a lot of myths and misconceptions about how collections actually affect your credit report and what happens when you actually, but more importantly, I should say, what happens when you pay off a collections. Oftentimes when I'm consulting clients on how to repair their credit, one of the first things that they do is say, well, I have a lot of old bills that have went into collections that I need to pay off in order to help build my credit. And while in your mind, the moral and ethical thing to do would be to pay off all those collections, the reality is that number one, those collections that have been charged off and the banks and the creditors have been paid, oftentimes 2 to 3 times the amount that you actually owed. And more importantly, as it comes to you, and what you're going to find out in this webinar is that it's not very much benefit at all, if any, for you to pay off a collection. Now, before we get any further, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Brian Howard, and I am the Director of Credit Services here at BKH Credit Group. At BKH Credit Group, we consult small business owners on how to build their business credit profile and create a business credit asset that can then be leveraged in the future for business funding. In addition to that, we are a full-fledged credit restoration company in terms that we help not only business owners but general consumers on how to restore and repair their credit through a 3-step process of 1, deleting negative items on their credit report, 2, adding or helping them maintain positive credit on their credit report, and 3, and most importantly, educating them on their credit report, their credit score, and just giving them the proper education that they need. Now, there's no sales pitch or anything like that at the end of this webinar. This is strictly information. I encourage you to take notes. Sometime tomorrow, within the next 24 to 48 hours, this webinar will be available for replay on our YouTube channel. So you can just just go to the search bar, type in BKH Credit Group, and you'll see some of the videos and webinars that we've posted in the past. Now, I apologize if my voice sounds a little ratchet, but I think I may be coming down with the sniffles a little bit. It's December here in Atlanta, and it's rainy and cold, and I was outside earlier this morning working out, and I think I may have picked up the sniffles. So if my voice sounds a little ratchet, then that's the reason why. But bear with me here a second. We're going to get started. Okay, excuse me. So 3 reasons why paying off collections will severely damage your credit scores. Many consumers believe that paying off collections is the best way to improve their credit. In reality, paying off a collection will almost always hurt your credit scores. Today, we're going to focus on exactly what happens to your credit when a collection account is paid off. And at the end of this webinar, you'll know the facts, the insider secrets that the collection companies and the debt agencies, they really just don't want you to know. Reason number 1, paying off a collection will update your SOL. Now, every account has what we call a statute of limitation. The statute of limitation determines how long a creditor can collect on that debt. Now, the statute of limitation is going to vary from state to state. I think here in Georgia, for a consumer or credit debt, that statute of limitation is 4 years. But places like California and Arizona, New York, I believe that statute could be up to 6 years. And in some states, I believe the statute is as low as 2 years. So each state has a different time frame that a collector can attempt by law to collect on that debt. Now, your statute of limitation will also be based on the account type, whether it's a mortgage, a judgment, tax lien. There are a few accounts that have a longer period of time for a statute of limitations. Credit cards and other installment loans like car loans usually have a shorter time frame that a collector can collect on that debt. Now, like I said earlier, many states have a statute of limitations of 4 years on credit card and contract debt. That means the collector can only collect for 4 years beyond the date of last activity of that account. Mortgages in many states have a statute of limitation of up to 7 years where the bank can pursue a particular debt. Now, When a payment is made on a collection account, the date of last activity is updated to the date that the payment was made. All right, this is very important information, and I'm going to go into detail into the next slide, but pay attention to this statement very carefully and keep this in your brain. When a payment is made on a collection account, the date of last activity is updated to the date the payment was made. So let's look at a real life example. So let's say you had a Chase credit card that went into collections 3 years ago. Now, the statute of limitation was 4 years. That would mean that you could only be pursued for 1 more year on that account. But when you make a payment, you update the date of last activity on that account, therefore extending the statute of limitations for an additional 7 years. If you make a partial or a full payment to that collection account, you reset the statute of limitations to the day when you made the payment. That will have only been able to pursue for 1 more year if you didn't make that payment. But now, because you've made that payment, you just gave the collector the legal authority to collect on that debt for an additional 4 more years. Now, when you pay off the collection, you extend the statute of limitations on how long that collector can collect. This is one great reason why you don't want to pay off a collection. So just keep in mind, side note, keep in mind that debt collectors are paid to collect money. Okay, they're not paid to inform you of your rights as far as the Fair Debt Credit and Reporting Act. It's up to you to know those rights, and being ignorant of those rights can severely damage your credit and cost you money. So always remember that paying off a collection, whether it be a partial or full payment, will almost always extend the statute of limitation that they're able to collect on their debt. So that's reason number 1 why we don't want to pay off a collection. Excuse me. Reason number 2, paying off a collection does not change the account status. Another big one, and we're going to go into detail. Paying off a collection does not change the account status. If you have an account in good standing, it reports on your credit report as a status 1. Okay, this is a part of the credit report that the average consumer doesn't even know exists. But there's whether it's on your TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax credit report, there's a code, a digit code that determines the status of that account. One status means it's in good standing. So, for example, a paid agreed as mortgage reports as a M1 status. A paid as agreed revolving account reports as a R1 status. When a late payment occurs, that status changes, and based on how late the account is being paid. The first late payment changes to a 2, and as the account becomes further behind, the number increases until the account ends up in a collection as a 9 status. All collections report as a 9 status and severely damage your credit score. Let me say that again. All collections report as a 9 status and severely damage your credit score. Key words being all collections. So, your credit scores are a mathematical model or algorithm used to depict the risk of you going 90 days late on an account in the future. So when you have a collection in a 9 status, your risk is high and your scores will be lower as a result. But when you pay off a collection, the account still remains a 9 status. It still looked at a defaulted account. Even though you paid it, you're still just as high of a risk in the eyes of the lender. Remember what we said, all collections report as a 9 status. That's paid or unpaid. Partially paid, unpaid, or paid is still a status 9 on your credit report, and it's still a collection. So the truth is, your scores will not go up when a collection is paid, because the collection 9 status still remain and is still looked upon as a defaulted account. Paying off a collection will not raise your score for this reason. And this is what I explain to my clients when they come to me and say, hey Brian, hey Mr. Howard, my credit's bad. I'm really trying to get things in order. I got some really old bills from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago that I need to pay off because I really, really, really want to improve my credit. Well, the reality is paying off a collection will not raise your scores for this reason. Please bear with me a moment. Just going to take a sip of water here. My voice is getting a little groggy. Just bear with me just a second. I apologize for that, everyone. But as I said, my voice was getting a little ratchet here. This weather here in Georgia is bothering me this morning. Okay, so let's go into the third reason, the third and final reason. Paying off, and this kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about earlier with statute of limitation. Paying off a collection will update your date reported. Every account on your credit report has a particular time it can be reported for. The time these accounts can report vary based on the type of accounts. Most negative accounts remain on your report for 7 years. Tax liens, bankruptcies, other government accounts can remain for up to 2 years. Other IRS debts can remain on your report indefinitely, never be removed in some cases. Now, the time starts from the date you went late, not the date of your last payment like the statute of limitation. Many creditors will update this date when a collection is paid off, even though they're not supposed to by law. Pay attention. Many creditors will update this date when a collection is paid off, even though they're not supposed to by law. But if you're in a repayment plan for a debt and you miss a payment, they can legally update this date on your report. So if you're in a repayment plan for a debt and you miss a payment, now they have the legal right to update the date on your credit reports. Okay, let's give you a real life example. You have a Capital One credit card. Everybody's familiar with Capital One, right? So you have a Capital One credit card, which you started going late on 4 years ago. The account is due to drop off in 7 years. So since it's 4 years old already, it would drop off in 3 or more years, theoretically, right? By law, right? Only 7 years to report, right? But in many cases, when you make a payment on this, the debt collector updates this date to the date that you make the payment. That means the account will now report on your credit much longer than it should. It was due to drop off in 3 years based on the prior example, but now the clock is reset and will remain for another 7 years. That's very powerful information, ladies and gentlemen. That's very powerful information, and you really need to understand this. The account was due to drop off in 3 years because it was already 4 years old. Okay, but because you defaulted on a prepayment plan, not on a repayment plan, rather I should say, now you've just given the creditor or the debt collector an additional 7 years to collect on that debt. Paying off of collections in many cases updates your account so collectors can keep the negative item on your report much longer than it should be, and that's their goal because they want to keep it on there longer and keep the dates fresh so they can continue to try to collect on that money. Now, when you pay off a collection, many items on your reports are updated. As you know, most of them are not good and they will severely hurt your credit score. The only good thing that happens if a balance is reported as zero is if it's paid off. Your score benefits very little by having a zero balance instead of an outstanding balance. So in other words, it's a collection, but now it's a collection. It's been now being reported as a zero balance. It really doesn't help you score. It shows as a zero balance. But in the mathematical algorithm that's used to collect your credit score, it doesn't really help your credit score. We're talking 3 points or less in the difference in your credit score. So, but having a zero balance does not outweigh having the date of last activity updated. So your credit scores mostly will go down as the bureau see it as a recent collection and a status 9 collection. This means your risk is still very high and your credit scores are going to stay low. The only way to improve credit is to delete the negative item. When the item is deleted, all the history is wiped out and the 9 status collection is gone for good. If you don't want to pay off a collection, make sure you obtain if you do want to pay off your collection, make sure you obtain what we call a pay to delete letter to have them remove the collection completely. Otherwise, dispute and delete your negative items. But by no means do you pay off the collections or it will hurt your score due to the 3 reasons that we've mentioned in this webinar. Okay, I want to thank you all for coming out, taking the time out to listen to this webinar. You could have been doing anything right now, but you chose to be here with us at BK's Credit Group. I hope you found the information very powerful. If you ever need to get in touch with me. I'm one of my representatives in my company about your credit, your business credit or personal credit. We are here. The information is on the screen. You can visit us at www.bkhcreditgroup.com. And you can email me at brianhoward@bkhcreditgroup.com. And then get us on our toll-free phone number at 1-800-979-4828. Hey, please contact us today to get the credit that you deserve. Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar. Have a happy holidays. Thank you.